Section 36 of Little Masterpieces of American Wit and Humor, Volume 2. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Little Masterpieces of American Wit and Humor, Volume 2. Edited by Thomas Lansing Masson. Section 36. George W. Peck. Peck's Bad Boy. "Say, are you a Mason or a Nodfellow or anything?" asked the bad boy of the grocery man as he went to the cinnamon bag on the shelf and took out a long stick of cinnamon bark to chew. "Why, yes, of course I am. But what set you to thinking of that?" asked the grocery man as he went to the desk and charged the boy's father with a half-pound of cinnamon. "Well, do the goats bunt when you 'nitiate a fresh candidate?" "No, of course not. The goats are cheap ones that have no life, and we muzzle them and put pillows over their heads so they can't hurt anybody," said the grocery man as he winked at a brother Oddfellow who was seated on a sugar barrel, looking mysterious. "But why do you ask?" "Oh, nothin'. Only I wish me and my chum had muzzled our goat with a pillow. Pa would have enjoyed his becoming a member of our lodge better. You see, Pa had been telling us how much good the Masons and Oddfellers did, and said we ought to try and grow up good so we could jine the lodges when we got big. And I asked Pa if it would do any hurt for us to have a play lodge in my room and pretend to 'nitiate, and Pa said it wouldn't do any hurt. He said it would improve our minds and learn us to be men. So my chum and me borrowed a goat that lives in a livery stable. Say, did you know they keep a goat in a livery stable so the horses won't get sick? They get used to the smell of the goat, and after that nothing can make them sick but a glue factory. You see, my chum and me had to carry the goat up to my room when Ma and Pa was out riding, and he blatted so we had to tie a handkerchief around his nose, and his feet made such a noise on the floor that we put some baby socks on his hoofs. Well, my chum and me practiced with the goat until he could bunt the picture of a goat every time. We borrowed a bock beer sign from a saloon man and hung it on the back of a chair, and the goat would hit it every time. That night Pa wanted to know what we were doing up in my room, and I told him we were playing lodge and improving our minds. Pa said that was right. There was nothing that did boys of our age half so much good as to imitate men, and store by useful knowledge. Then my chum asked Pa if he didn't want to come up and take the grand bumper degree, and Pa laughed and said he didn't care if he did, just to encourage us boys in innocent pastime that was so improving to our intellects. We had shut the goat up in a closet in my room, and he had got over blatting, so we took off the handkerchief, and he was eating some of my paper collars and skate straps. We went upstairs and told Pa to come up pretty soon and give 3 distinct raps, and when we asked him who comes there he must say, "A pilgrim who wants to join your ancient order and ride the goat." Ma wanted to come up too, but we told her if she come in it would break up the lodge, 'cause a woman couldn't keep a secret, and we didn't have any side saddle for the goat. Say, if you never tried it, the next time you initiate a man in your Mason's lodge, you sprinkle a little cayenne pepper on the goat's beard just before you turn him loose. You can get 3 times as much fun to the square inch of goat. You wouldn't think it was the same goat. Well, we got all fixed, and Pa rapped, and we let him in, and told him he must be blindfolded, and he got on his knees a-laughing, and I tied a towel around his eyes, and then I turned him around and made him get down on his hands also, and then his back was right toward the closet sign, and I put the bock beer sign right against Pa's clothes. He was a-laughing all the time, and said we boys were as full of fun as they made 'em, and we told him it was a solemn occasion, and we wouldn't permit no levity, and if he didn't stop laughing we couldn't give him the grand bumper degree. Then everything was ready, and my chum had his hand on the closet door and some cayenne pepper in his other hand, and I asked Pa in low bass tones if he felt as though he wanted to turn back or if he had nerve enough to go ahead and take the degree. I warned him that it was full of dangers, as the goat was loaded for bear, and told him he yet had time to retrace his steps if he wanted to. He said he wanted the whole business, and we could go ahead with the menagerie. Then I said to Pa that if he had decided to go ahead, and not blame us for the consequences, to repeat after me the following: "Bring forth the royal bumper and let him bump." Pa repeated the words, and my chum sprinkled the cayenne pepper on the goat's mustache, and he sneezed once and looked sassy, and then he see the lager beer goat rearing up, and he started for it just like a crow catcher, and blatted. Pa is real fat, but he knew he got hit, and he grunted and said, "What you boys doin'?" And then the goat gave him another degree, and Pa pulled off the towel and got up and started for the stairs, and so did the goat. And Ma was at the bottom of the stairs listening, and when I looked over the banisters, Pa and Ma and the goat were all in a heap, and Pa was yelling murder, and Ma was screaming fire, and the goat was blatting and sneezing and bunting, and the hired girl came into the hall, and the goat took after her, and she crossed herself just as the goat struck her, and said, "Holy Mother, protect me!" and went downstairs the way we boys slide downhill, with both hands on herself, and the goat reared up and blatted, and Pa and Ma went into their room and shut the door. And then my chum and me opened the front door and drove the goat out. The minister, who comes to see Ma every 3 times a week, was just ringing the bell, and the goat thought he wanted to be initiated too, and gave him one for luck, and then went down the sidewalk blatting and sneezing, and the minister came in the parlor and said he was stabbed, and then Pa came out of his room with his suspenders hanging down, and he didn't know the minister was there, and he said cuss words, and Ma cried and told Pa he would go to the bad place sure, and Pa said he didn't care, he would kill that cussed goat afore he went, and I told Pa the minister was in the parlor, and he and Ma went down and said the weather was propitious for a revival, and it seemed as though an outpouring of the Spirit was about to be vouchsafed, and none of them sot down but Ma, 'cause the goat didn't hit her, and while they were talking religion with their mouths, and cussin' the goat inwardly, my chum and me adjourned to the lodge, and I went and stayed with him all night, and I haven't been home since. But I don't believe Pa will lick me, 'cause he said he would not hold us responsible for the consequences. He ordered the goat hisself, and we filled the order, don't you see? Well, I guess I will go and sneak in the back way, and find out from the hired girl how the land lays. She won't go back on me, 'cause the goat was not loaded for hired girls. She just happened to get in at the wrong time. Goodbye, sir. Remember, and give your goat cayenne pepper in your lodge. The average American at home or abroad does not take kindly to anything that would seem to cast the shadow of a shade upon his native land. A story told one evening at the Richmond Avenue Methodist Episcopal Church by the Reverend George W. Peck might be cited in illustration. An Englishman was traveling through Italy with an American friend, and in the course of their sojournings each maintained the superiority of his own country. Finally, the grand spectacle of Mount Vesuvius in eruption, throwing its brilliant rays across the Bay of Naples, burst upon their astonished gaze. "Now look at that!" chuckled the Englishman. "You haven't got anything in America that can come anywhere near that." "No," moodily replied the Yankee. "It is true we have not got a Vesuvius, but we have got a waterfall that could put that thing out in less than 5 minutes." An Illinois paper has the following: "The funeral services of the late William P. Lewis were somewhat hurried to enable his estimable and grief-stricken widow to catch the 2 o'clock train for Chicago, where she goes to visit friends." "Fellow citizens," said the candidate, "I have fought against the Indians. I have often had no bed but the battlefield, and no canopy but the sky. I have marched over the frozen ground till every step has been marked with blood." His story told well, till a dried-up looking voter came to the front. Did yer say yer'd fought for the Union? Yes, replied the candidate. And agin the Indians? Yes, many a time. And that you had slept on the ground with only the sky for a kiver? Certainly. And that your feet bled in marchin' over the frozen ground? That they did, cried the exultant candidate. Then I'll be darned if you hain't done enough for your country. Go home and rest. I'll vote for the other fellow. Mrs. L. had often told Mamie, her 4-year-old daughter, that she was never alone because God was always with her. One day Mrs. L. was called from the room and left Mamie for a longer time than she expected. When she came back she said pityingly, "Why, Mamie, have you been here alone all the time? I thought someone would come in." "Oh, I haven't been alone, mamma," Mamie answered, "because God has been with me. But," she added gravely, "He's dreadful poor company." End of section 36. End of Little Masterpieces of American Wit and Humor, Volume 2, edited by Thomas Lansing Masson.